This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio, the Stephen A. Smith Show simulcast live over the television airwaves of ESPN News. The number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. I know the story of the day. I know what the story of the day is. I know that it involves the suspension of Urban Meyer, head coach of The Ohio State University. I know it's 3 games. I know there's a lot of people that's not satisfied. I know there's a lot that a lot of people have to say about it. I'll get to that in just a few minutes, but I got something else on my mind. And you know what that is? That's Khalil Mack. Now, there are still Raiders fans in the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, even though they're the Oakland Raiders and they're moving to Las Vegas. And I know there's some people out there that's saying, what the hell is going on with the Oakland Raiders thinking about trading this man? I know there's some people that's asking the question as to why in the hell can the Oakland Raiders figure out a way to come up with $100 million for a coach that I have profound respect for, but didn't coach for the last 10 years, and the previous 6 years he coached prior to that, he only made the playoffs twice. And even though he won the Super Bowl in the 2003 season, which was the 2002 season, which was the 2003 Super Bowl, damn it, he ain't won a playoff game since then. That spans 15 years. Not only was my hairline about 3 feet forward at that particular time, I had a damn afro. That's how long ago John Gruden won a playoff game. And if you can find $100 million for that, you should be able to find some money for Khalil Mack. That's the mentality that everybody has. Most people have when you hear about Khalil Mack potentially being on a trade market, wondering where he's going to end up. I've got something else that's on my mind about Khalil Mack. And that is the New York Jets. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, if there is a team that should be doing everything it possibly can do under the sun and the heavenly stars to get their hands on Khalil Mack, it is the New York Jets. You got a stud in safety Jamal Adams. You got a stud defensive lineman in Leonard Williams. You went and got this kid Tremaine from the Los Angeles Rams. But you know what you don't have? You don't have that linebacker who also could be a defensive lineman, who also can assist in getting after the passer and do it in an elite level. In 4 years in Oakland, Khalil Mack has 40.5 sacks. In 4 years in Oakland, there has not been a better defensive player on their squad. In 4 years, while the Oakland Raiders, for the most part, were stinking up the joint with the exception of the 12-4 season, which ended in a wild card loss, because they didn't have Derek Carr as their quarterback because he went down the second to the last game of the season. Khalil Mack has been the face of this defense. The Oakland Raiders want to do something stupid by making sure they don't get their hands on Khalil Mack. Their stupidity is potentially the Jets' game. And if you're the New York Jets, because you drafted the number 3 overall pick and spent it on Sam Darnold, you have your quarterback for the future, who, by the way, at this particular moment is underpaid. So you have money. And if you have money with a stout defensive mind like Todd Bowles as your head coach, and you've got personnel on the defensive side of the ball, you go ahead and you make sure you get Khalil Mack. You do whatever the hell it takes to get your hands on that man. He played college at Buffalo, which means he's played in the state. He's a stud. He's hungry. Don't give me that stuff about a contract in the National Football League. Why? Because in the National Football League, guess what? They sign you to a deal, but got a right to reduce your salary. Got a right to cut you and waive you. They can be non-committal with their commitments. And if that sounds like a damn oxymoron, it's because it is. There's no consistency with this. There's no loyalty with this. If this were baseball, basketball, something like that, you sign a damn contract, live with it. In football, no, it doesn't go that way. Because the owners is not applicable to them. The teams is not applicable to them. Why should it be applicable to the player? Get yours while you can get yours. And in case you didn't know, that was Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. That's what you do. You go and you get Khalil Mack, the Mack Daddy. That's what you do. Khalil Mack in New York City. Khalil Mack in New York City. You talk about a gangrene defense resurrecting itself, rises from the ashes of mediocrity and beyond. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is a no-brainer to me. You're the New York Jets. You have got to do this. You've got to find a way. There's at least 12 teams reportedly that have called the Oakland Raiders about Khalil Mack. And in fairness to the Oakland Raiders, let's be clear. Let's not blame this on John Gruden. First of all of us would take the money just like he took the money. Secondly, from a football acumen standpoint, the man is made to be a part of football. He knows football inside and out. Whether he can coach this generation of players remains to be seen. But I don't think him being away from the game as long as he was will hurt him as much as it would have hurt other coaches, because he was the voice of Monday Night Football, which means that he was around these guys all the time. And by virtue of being around all of them, talking to them, ingratiating yourself with today's modern day player, while at the same time calling the games, giving color commentary, first with the great Mike Tirico and then with Sean McDonough. And on top of it all, getting access to those locker rooms and talking to the coaches and what have you. I think everybody knows that John Gruden knows his damn football. But $100 million? $100 million? Bill Belichick don't get that. Mike Tomlin don't get that. Mike McCarthy doesn't get that. Pete Carroll don't get that. John Fox didn't get that when he was in Denver. Ron Rivera has never gotten that from Carolina. Doug Peterson just signed a new contract in Philadelphia. He ain't get that. Tom Coughlin won 2 Super Bowls and was pushed out the door by some scrub named Ben McAdoo, who was a chubby version of Pat Riley. Actually, I take that back. That's an insult to the true Mac, Pat Riley. He was a wannabe Pat Riley. In every sense of the word. Down to that damn the slickness in his hair, or whatever the hell you call that stuff you put in his hair with those phony shades. If that was Pat Riley, he would at least rock some Cartiers, Prada, something. For all we know about Ben McAdoo, he got them cheap-looking shades from some damn deli stand off of Broadway. But I digress. My point is, you don't have this kind of situation. None of these coaches get paid $100 million. So if you could find $100 million for John Gruden, how come you couldn't find $100 million or at least something close to that for Khalil Mack? I hear that the Raiders have a cash flow problem. Once they get some money from the NFL in October, they'll have more cash. But until that moment in time, they don't have it. Excuse me, projections are a part of business. It's a part of business plans. If you know you got that money coming in October, how come you can't pay Khalil Mack in August? You'll get it back in 6 weeks. You're the New York Jets. You cannot mess around. You got an opportunity to get the Mack Daddy, you go get him. He's Khalil Mack, for crying out loud. He is that dude. If you got an opportunity to get him, you go ahead and you get this man. Couple of other football items, or at least one other football item that's on my mind is the New England Patriots getting rid of Kenny Britt, another wide receiver gone, about the third wide receiver they've let go of in this preseason, but no call to Dez Bryant. In case y'all are wondering, what has happened to Dez Bryant is very simple. He's been sabotaged. I know that he's taken a step back. I know that Dez Bryant ain't the player that he was a few years ago, like in 2013 when he was arguably considered the best receiver in football. I get all of that. But he was still the best receiver on the Cowboys last year. You gonna let him go and your response is Allen Hurns, Cole Beasley, and Terrence Williams? Clearly, this is one of those situations where word has been put out about Dez Bryant and his stock is going to be hurt. And isn't it amazing? Des Bryant's stock is hurt, but Aqib Talib's stock ain't hurt. He's in L.A. Marcus Peters' stock ain't hurt. He's in Kansas City. And Ndamukong Suh's stock ain't hurt. He's in L.A. as well. I'm sorry, Marcus Peters came from Kansas City to L.A. So L.A. took 3, and I don't find them questionable. I don't have no problem with them, but I'm just saying according to the reports, these individuals are supposed to be questionable. They all land in La-La. Des Bryant's questionable. He can't even get a ride down the road to Houston. Can't get picked up. I mean, he's done everything but throw flowers in Belichick and Tom Brady's direction over the last couple of days. I guess meeting with the Cleveland Browns would do that to you. So you got that situation with Dez. And I just think it's a damn shame he's gotten screwed over the way that he has. Now let me get to the story. Ladies and gentlemen, let me confess to you, I don't enjoy talking about this. And I'm going to be honest with you, like I always am, but in a way that most people can't. We can't talk about these issues involving domestic violence with the level of candor that we'd prefer. Because God knows I'm a witness and testimony. I'm living testimony to the fact you utter the wrong word. It can cost you. The wrong word. So I'm aware of this. But I want to say this. Reading this report, hearing from the investigators, Urban Meyer should be fired. I'm going to say it again. Urban Meyer should be fired. And I'm going to tell you why. It doesn't have as much to do with domestic violence as you would think. This incident itself has highlighted and illuminated the fact that a fact we've already known. Most times, more than 85% of the time, women are truly the victims. It's just the truth. Let's just stop it. It's just the truth. Because when you see an incident like this, it highlights it. Zach Smith, the incompetent assistant coach who coached wide receivers who didn't do a damn good job at it at that, because you have players on Ohio State who swore they had been coached better by other people. This dude was late to practices. Players got there before him. He was out, albeit on his own dime, going to strip clubs and stuff. I mean, this brother was a loose cannon. Should have been going a while ago. His granddaddy was Earl Bruce, former coach at Ohio State, mentor to Urban Meyer, responsible for basically getting Urban Meyer started in the coaching profession. Urban Meyer clearly felt a level of obligation to Earl Bruce, and as a result, spared his grandson, who clearly, based on these reports, had no business being an assistant coach at an institution of higher learning. No business whatsoever. If you read some of this stuff, I mean, first of all, you got the domestic violence issues, at least a couple of separate incidences. One in 2009 when the man was at Florida, again in 2015. You also have him reportedly having engaged in a sexual relationship with the secretary on the football staff. That's another thing that's potentially ground for dismissal. He took explicit photographs of himself in Ohio State's football facilities and other locations, including the White House. The White House! The White House! I mean, who goes to the White House and thinks about being horny? Let me take that back. Because after all, we know who's in office now. So let me, I might have spoke out of turn. I apologize. But facetiously speaking, I mean, who goes to the White House? Horny! Who does that? Who does that? I mean, is it just me? Is it just me? And ladies and gentlemen, let me put myself on Front Street. Let me not be a phony. I am somebody, at least a long time ago, long time ago. I had a very active lifestyle. I'll confess. Promiscuity was not my middle name. It was Anthony, but damn it, it was up there. It just was. All right, I just told on myself. You happy now? And I'm guilty. I was guilty as charged. Once that's a long time ago, long time ago. I was guilty. It's true. But never in my wildest dreams. Now, I have not been to the White House. President Obama never invited me, Andy Katz, Mike Wilbon, people like Jamel Hill and all. Yeah, he never invited me. He invited them. But now I digress. My point is, I would have considered it an extreme honor. I have been on Capitol Hill. I have been in the state capitol. I have been to the Pentagon. Horniness is not something that comes up. It just doesn't. Horny at the White House? Really? Really? That's what this dude, Zach Smith, was doing. And here's the thing, Urban Meyer knew. Urban Meyer knew. Says here, June 2016, Meyer directed Zach Smith to be admitted to a drug treatment facility for addiction to a stimulant prescription drug used to treat ADHD. Meyer didn't tell athletic director Gene Smith that Zach Smith was being treated for drug abuse, according to investigators. That's just one thing. But when I utter the words to you that Urban Meyer should have been fired, it's not because of this. I think that a suspension that ensured it would include at least 2 Big Ten games was more than enough. He's not the one who committed domestic violence. That was Zach Smith. And I think a lot of times we are so fixated on making sure somebody pays that we actually let the true perpetrator off the hook. No one is more egregious in this particular instance than Zach Smith, the assistant coach. He is the one that put his hands on his pregnant wife before, then ultimately his wife, and then after they had separated. He did that. Urban Meyer, as inexcusable as it may be, it's entirely plausible that somebody who had a mentor who he believes is responsible for sparking his illustrious career owed it to the granddaddy to try and look out for his grandson. We might not like it. We might not approve of it. But damn it, we know that happens. It just does. Trevor Mattis came on First Take today and essentially alluded to as much. So has Paul Feinbaum, where collectively we all march lockstep in unison with one another. Is looking at that press conference last night. That was when my position transitioned from Urban Meyer being suspended to Urban Meyer needing to go. Paul Feinbaum said he looked like a damn hostage up there. That's what he said. That's what he was talking about. Urban Meyer sat up there last night like he was the victim. Like Courtney Smith, the victim, the woman who was abused by her husband, verbally, physically, or otherwise, whatever way you want to term it. She says physical. Urban Meyer acted like he was her. Like he was the one that was being victimized. That he was the one that was being tortured. No remorse. No contrition. He never even mentioned her name. And when asked specifically about her, he said, I'm just sorry that we're all here. This is what it was. He was asked what his message to Courtney Smith is, the victim. Listen to what Urban Meyer said.
What message do you have for Courtney Smith?
Well, I have a message for everyone involved in this. I'm sorry that we're in this situation. And I'm just sorry we're in this situation.
What about Shelley's text messages? Why were you not concerned from her messages about this situation?
I was not aware of Shelley's text messages at the time.
All right, stop right there. And see, that's another thing. Because not only did he show no remorse, not only did he show no contrition, he flat out lied. Ladies and gentlemen, you ladies out there, oh, you gonna call up to this show today. You gonna call up to, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Y'all gonna call up here today because I want one woman. I challenge one woman in this country to call up here to tell me you're married to a man for 29 years. His wife, the wife of a subordinate tells you she's being physically abused and you didn't tell your husband? What wife is that? Now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, to put myself on the full disclosure, I haven't been married. Obviously, I've had intimate relations, but I have not been married. Let me be very, very clear. You are with a woman for 29 years. There is no way on earth she did not tell you what's going on. There's no way she kept that from you. Don't tell me that. That's insulting my intelligence. The wife of Urban Meyer, the head football coach of The Ohio State University, a 3-time national champion, in the discussion yearly as to whether or not he's the best coach in all of college football, him or Nick Saban, who signs a contract extension, who's getting paid $7.6 million annually in total cash compensation, who's a 3-time national champion, who, by the way, has a history of troubles because 31 arrests occurred under his watch at Florida. That guy. You said nothing to him about one of his subordinates, the wife of one of his subordinates, claiming she was being physically abused. You said nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that's a lie. That's just a flat-out lie. I'd stake my career on that. And I don't know Urban Meyer's wife from a can of paint. If she was standing right in front of me, I wouldn't know who she is. There is no woman alive that would keep such information from her husband of 29 years. Damn it, I don't think there's a woman alive who would do that to a husband she'd been married to for 29 days. How about 29 hours? Let alone 29 minutes. That's just a damn lie. Urban Meyer could have went up to the press conference yesterday and said, hey, I messed up big time. I mishandled this stuff. As Trevor Maddich said, I apologize to Courtney Smith, and I apologize to women everywhere who suffer from such a heinous act. I didn't add substance to these kind of situations. I diluted it for my own selfish gain. And for that, I'm sincerely sorry and I apologize. Urban Meyer chose to take a different route, and yet a very predictable one. And I'll close this segment by asking a very, very simple question. Y'all still okay with 18, 19, 20, 25-year-olds being held more accountable than grown men who are supposed to be leaders of those young men? Think about that and talk to me.
Computer, execute 12.4p operation.
Optimizing algorithm. Running encryption packet alpha. Night. Oh, I don't feel so good.
What is it, computer?
Is it hot in here? It feels hot in here. I feel a little clammy. I should lie down or something.
A computer with a virus? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Those oysters Rockefeller were a mistake.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. I'm just reading some of these, just some stuff from the investigation. And mine's messed up, man. From 2009, he and his wife, Shelly, believed Courtney Smith was not entirely truthful when she called 911 to have Zach arrested. You got Ohio State performed a standard background check on Zach Smith in 2011, but it neither sought nor received any arrest information. How do you do a background check of somebody and don't check to see if they've ever been arrested? I mean, really? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then, of course, the wife, can't blame her. She's being loyal to her husband, even though she is an employee of the Ohio State University. And we haven't even talked about what her job status should be at the university. I'm talking about Shelly Meyer, the wife of Urban Meyer. Told investigators she did not relay Courtney Smith's text messages to Urban Meyer because, quote, she had doubts about the veracity of Courtney Smith's allegations. So let me get this straight. Are you ready for this? Nuno, John, Kat, my producers. So, according to the Board of Trustees in their investigation, what y'all are telling us is that the wife didn't believe her allegations were credible, which means you thought she probably was lying. So you didn't go home and tell your husband, look, the wife is about to lie on your assistant coach. Really? Really? I guess we all boo-boo the fool, huh? I guess so. Oh, but this is the fun part, y'all. See, this is the one. Other than Zach Smith being horny at the White House, this is the funny part about it. This is the fun part for me. Meyer told investigators he had no memory of the 2015 investigation of Zach Smith when he appeared at the Big Ten Media Day on July 24th in Chicago. He said he focused his responses solely on an accusation that Zach Smith was arrested on a felony charge in 2015, which proved to be erroneous. But in a text message chain obtained by investigators, Gene Smith had advised Meyer to acknowledge he knew about two legal situations involving Zach Smith in 2009 and 2015, while Meyer acknowledged receiving the text. You also got to remember that Urban Meyer had made it so all of his text messages that were older than a year were erased from his phone. Let's not forget that. Lord have mercy. Once again, I'm going to close by saying this. My only point for bringing this up, because I personally don't feel the need to belabor all of this. We live in a country where we are so quick to hold kids responsible. You're 18, 19, 20, 23, 25 years old. If this were a kid, we'd be all over him. He'd be out of the program. His scholarship would have been revoked. He'd have been let go by the school, and we'd be wondering whether or not where he would land and if he would land anywhere. That's what we'd be wondering. Urban Meyer, grown man, leader of men, head of a football program. Not so much. Paul Feinbaum had something to say about Urban Meyer earlier this morning. Listen to the great Paul Feinbaum, the mouth of the South, one of the premier preeminent voices in college football today. Listen to what he had to say about Urban Meyer.
The reason why, from what I've heard, that meeting went 12 hours yesterday was because Urban Meyer refused to accept the suspension initially. The president wanted the suspension. Gene Smith, I'm not sure, really was even consulted because he was under the gun as well. And Urban was adamant, and that's why he showed up late last night with a petty, surly, petulant approach, why he looked like he was a hostage in a bad video. That's why he said what he did or didn't say anything relevant. But what we saw last night was the Urban Meyer that I know. That's the Urban Meyer that I talked to you guys about 3 weeks ago that I called an arrogant fraud. He is. In addition to being an arrogant fraud, he's a liar. And it's pretty obvious he has no integrity. And you can't go buy that somewhere. You can't get it back. And I'm sure the good old boys, as all of you have said, will continue to enable him. I heard some people say that it was a mistake and he didn't handle it very well. No, that's who he is. And that's what Ohio State is invested in right now at nearly $8 million a year.
That was the great Paul Feinbaum, who is a friend of this show and a friend of mine. Who does a fantastic job for the ESPN family. And he called them a liar and a fraud. Can't get much stronger than that. Last thing I'll say about this, and this is the part that I meant was more funnier than the horny comment. Investigators also learned Meyer, quote, sometimes has significant memory issues in other situations where he had prior extensive knowledge of events, and that the coach has periodically taken medicine that, quote, can negatively impair his memory, concentration, and focus. So let me get this straight. You're coaching a football program. You're the face and head of a football program, one of the preeminent programs in the entire nation. You've won 90.1% of your games. You are 73-8. In the 81 games you coached at Ohio State. but somehow you're taking medication that impairs his memory, concentration, and focus. Ohio State said, you know what Ohio State saying? Hell with all y'all. We trying to win. Y'all can kiss our tush. We were 6-7 before he got here under Coach Fickle. Now we 73-8 in the 6 years that Urban Meyer was here. Y'all need to get over that. That's what y'all need to do. Y'all need to get the hell over it. That's what Ohio State's saying. Okay. Let's just remember this when it comes to kids. If that's our approach. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's the number to call them. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to John. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Sir, before I even comment on Urban Meyer and Ohio State, I do want to say I have immense respect for you because you are the leader in honesty and integrity and telling it the way it is.
Thank you, sir.
Regarding Ohio State and the Ohio State Board, I believe they sent the following message to the youth of America. It's okay to lie. It's okay to not follow the rules. It's okay to deceive as long as we win, because winning is everything. And this, sir, that is despicable to the United States of America, and that man should be fired.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. 888-SAY-ESPN. More with Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio before the lovely Christine Brennan shows up in a minute.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!
888-SAY-ESPN. Dan, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hi, Stephen A. I just got back from vacation, went to Tupelo, Mississippi to see my brother John, and congratulations on the ESPN first take on the New York. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Go ahead, buddy.
I'd like to say about the Khalil Mack situation. I've been hearing the Jets and I've been hearing that the Chiefs are interested. What are your thoughts on that?
In who? Khalil Mack?
On Khalil Mack.
Everybody's saying, who wouldn't be interested in Khalil Mack? Everybody's interested in Khalil Mack. It's just a matter of who's going to get him.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yep.
Everybody's interested in Khalil Mack. Everybody. Yeah. And they should be.
Yeah, they should be. Yeah.
Appreciate the call, buddy. Thank you. Brian, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead.
Speaking of the Khalil Mack situation, didn't John Gruden say that if he didn't win, he would give his money back? Well, wouldn't Khalil Mack help to ensure he won?
I don't recall that statement, but it doesn't matter because if John Gruden said that, we know he's lying. What he said, what I remember him saying is that, you know what, they won't have to worry about paying me. If I don't win, I'll quit. That doesn't mean that he's going to give money back. It just means he won't stay on the job if he's doing a horrible job.
That's true, but Khalil Mack can help him win, so.
Well, John Gruden's words were is that the defense wasn't that great with them last year. That's what he said.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, buddy. Let's go to Greg. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
What's up, my brother? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Talk to me.
Hey, Steve, let me preface this by saying, man, first of all, I definitely don't condone no man putting his hand on no woman. That's number one.
Okay.
But what's bothering me, Steve, is this, man. I mean, it seems like to me everybody's aiming this vitriol at Urban Meyer. Okay, I understand Title IX, and I understand his contract, and, he's supposed to uphold, these type of things. But it seems like Zach Smith is just, he's just getting away. I mean, he's the one who beat his wife. He's the one who.
Well, he's also he's also fired. He's also fired. But
I got that. I get that, Steve. I get that he got fired. Okay. He lost his job, which is great, absolutely great.
Right.
And probably Urban should have fired him earlier than that. I'm with all that. My problem is though all this vitriol that's being aimed at Urban Meyer. I mean, I guess I'm from the old school, man. What I'm saying is, I get it that, how you say,
look,
politically correct.
Let me help you out, Greg. Let me help you out. Okay. First of all, I understand because times have changed. We've evolved as a society and there's heightened awareness about domestic violence and domestic abuse than ever before. Credit Ray Rice and the situation and Ray McDonald for the San Francisco 49ers, Greg Hardy, formerly of the Carolina Panthers, and then the Dallas Cowboys. Credit a few others as well. We get that. We understand that. But it doesn't negate the fact that it's the right thing to do. It doesn't negate the fact that vast majority of times women have been victimized. If you are Urban Meyer, I'll give you this reason why you should be far more hardcore about Urban Meyer than you sound, Greg, and that's this. Urban Meyer, quote, had a no-tolerance policy when it came to the kids, but somehow, some way, was very tolerant when it came to one of his assistant coaches. Can you explain that real quick?
Say it again for me, Steve.
Well, I don't have time to hear your response, but what I will tell you is Urban Meyer had a no-tolerance policy when it came to kids, but did not have that no-tolerance policy when it came to one of his assistant coaches who happened to be the grandson of his mentor. And when you have that level of inconsistency, you invite the vitriol that Urban Meyer is bringing in this direction. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. The wonderful, incomparable Christine Brennan of USA Today will be up next with yours truly right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. It is my honor and privilege to have my next guest on the line. She is one of the elite sports columnists this industry has ever seen. If I remember correctly, she's a native of Ohio, not to mention the fact that she's been writing for USA Today for many, many years. The wonderful Christine Brennan is on the line with yours truly as we speak. Christine, good afternoon. How are you? How's everything?
Hey, Stephen A., things are great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me. Let me get right to it. Your reaction to this 3-game suspension handed down to Urban Meyer.
It's a joke, Stephen A. It's if you read the report, and even before the report, I thought Urban Meyer should be fired. But you read the report and you see the variety of transgressions and his behavior, Urban Meyer, and his knowledge about what was going on with his assistant coach, Zach Smith, and keeping him on for all those years from 2009 when the first allegations occurred, abuse of a pregnant wife, Zach Smith and Courtney Smith, yep, all the way through, with the other illicit behavior. We're talking about a college campus. You're keeping this man around student athletes and young people. Of course, there's the text messages and getting all of a sudden they disappear from Urban Meyer's phone. On and on and on it goes. I think he should have been fired. I think Ohio State would look so good today if they had done that, and they'd be probably thankful for just getting rid of this problem. Instead, the way he handled the press conference, obviously I'm sure there's other things we can discuss, but you throw it all together, and I must admit, I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about what people are saying.
Right.
But I have been struck by the number of people who are angry with Ohio State, people you don't even hear from, who are either agreeing with my column. Obviously, you have the Ohio State people who are furious, or they're angry and they're all upset, whatever. But in general, people seem to be agreeing with what I'm saying, which in the sense that this is an outrage, and it's almost like it's building in a weird way, that it's growing and it's crossing over. I'm not talking to you from CNN, where I just I've done a couple CNN hits today, right, and it's pretty rare for a story like this, to make CNN, but it's domestic violence, and it's, here we are in 2018, the Me Too era, the Time's Up era. You throw all this into the mix, and you've got a big mess. And instead of trying to solve the problem, I think Ohio State maybe added to it with just that 3-game slap on the wrist suspension.
Christine Brennan for USA Today, right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News as well. Obviously, the answer to this is predictable, knowing you and knowing how honorable you are. But I must ask the question anyway: does it in any way, I wouldn't say assuage your concerns or whatever, but is there any kind of mulligan that can be thrown in Urban Meyer's direction, considering the fact that the assistant coach that he essentially covered for is the grandson of Earl Bruce, former coach at Ohio State, mentor to Urban Meyer, somebody Urban Meyer felt indebted to and clearly was trying to look out for Earl Bruce on behalf of by virtue of taking care of his grandson?
We all understand that feeling, right, of your mentor and someone in the family, and you care about it. I remember Earl Bruce. I grew up in Toledo. You were right, in the suburbs of Toledo, Ottawa Hills. I still own a home there. I'm actually a taxpayer in Ohio to this day, even though I'm also in Washington, D.C., and, of course, that's where I'm based. But so I'm a proud Ohioan. Now, it so happened we looked north to Ann Arbor, and we were, as a child, I was a Michigan fan. I then went to Northwestern, and obviously my allegiances in my childhood, things that I liked in my childhood have nothing to do with my journalism today. But I get that concept. And it's a part of our lives and how people advance and who gets hired and the son-in-law gets hired or the daughter-in-law. I get that. To me, that doesn't fly when you consider Urban Meyer not just the football coach, but this kind of greater human that Urban Meyer has always portrayed himself to be. Sanctimonious, holier than thou, taking the moral high ground. I'm sure you recall just less than a year ago, September of last year, when that huge men's basketball scandal hit. Yeah. And he was asked about it on a radio show in Columbus, and he said, if you've got a second cell phone, I mean, hard to believe, second cell phone, if you're a head coach and you're texting kids or recruits or calling them on your second cell phone, you should be fired. Yep. That's what Urban Meyer said 11 months ago. Well, what would that Urban Meyer, Stephen A., say about this Urban Meyer? And I think he would say he should have been fired. So the allegiance with Earl Bruce, I think, should have ended when he first found out about the 2009 incident. Urban Meyer should have said, I'm taking you off my staff at Florida. We're going to get you help. We're going to get you guidance. We're going to get you away from Courtney, instead of a he said, she said, which is apparently what he thought the 2015 incident. So you could nip this in the bud and try to help a young man and help even more important, a young woman, Courtney Smith, the victim of this. Or you can do what Urban Meyer did, which now, 9 years later, we are finding out just how horrible his decision-making is.
Christine Brennan right here. Christine Brennan of USA Today right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. I'm interested in knowing what's the biggest takeaway you took from the presser last night. You have some people who lamented the fact that he couldn't even mention the victim's name, Courtney Smith. Couldn't even do that. You have others like me who highlighted the lack of remorse and contrition. Then there are others who point to Ohio State's use of medication, as an excuse, Urban Meyer's use of medication. Contributing his lack of focus and memory to medication that he's been taking, because obviously when he departed from Florida, he was not in good health and he's been taking medication for years. I don't know what is the most egregious thing you find from the presser last night. Can you share that with me?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, that last one is lame. That's the dog ate my homework. I mean,
Christine, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, I'm saying. Yeah, I can hear you now. I'm sorry. I wanted to know.
Good. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I want to know what was the most egregious part you found. Go ahead.
Exactly. Well, I was going to say, first of all, the last one, it's so lame. It's like the dog ate my homework.
Yes.
That I couldn't remember. It's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And I guess if he has a serious mental condition, then I guess he probably should be coaching. And so, that's just, and the fact that trustees are buying that and putting that out there, that's ridiculous. And we should call it as we see it. And Ohioans, of all people, common sense Ohioans would call that absolutely preposterous. But for me, the worst was the question he was asked, I believe it was a man, a ESPN reporter, who asked, what would he say to Courtney Smith? And that's a softball that you can hit out of the park, or a fastball right up the middle. They just grooved it right to you. And instead of saying, I'm thinking about her, I'm sorry, maybe there's legal aspects, maybe you can't say sorry, maybe, you've been schooled on X, Y, Z. Okay, there are a million words out there, and you're Urban Meyer, and you write books, and you give speeches, and you're the man, and you're, so sanctimonious, blah, blah, blah. You can't figure out a couple sentences, and including mentioning her name. I thought that was just awful. He looked terrible. That will go down, I think, in history as part of his legacy. I don't think people are going to forget that for a long time. And that video, I'm sure, has been played many, many, many times and will. And especially, Stephen A., you know this. You and I talk a lot about culture, sports and culture. In fact, that's almost our beat, you and I. And when you think of the Me Too movement, and when you think of Time's Up and where we are with women in our culture, and a number of women running for election in the midterms and all this stuff, that he could not put a face and a name, and he couldn't utter the name, the words, to a woman who is a victim of alleged abuse. It's clearly abuse over all of these years. That was one of the darkest hours, I think, in the history of Ohio State football, at least off the field, and certainly one of the worst moments in Urban Meyer's public life. And I think we should talk about it from the rafters and shout it out. What a horrible, horrible display that was by Urban Meyer toward the one person who's the victim, not Urban Meyer, not the Ohio State fans, but Courtney Smith.
Christine Brennan, one of the great sports columnists in America of USA Today, right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. You know, Christine, one of the things that I peeled away from it, I am not a woman, but I was raised by 5 of them, and I'm pretty confident when I say this. I don't know a woman alive that has been married to a man for 29 years that would not tell him that a subordinate of his allegedly is committing domestic violence at the time. And she'd keep it from him and wouldn't say anything about him, particularly in today's climate. I cannot believe that that's happened. But this is what Urban Meyer and his wife are alluding to, that he was not aware. This is kind of stuff that they're saying, Christine. Your thoughts?
Yeah, right, that he didn't know, and that obviously then Shelley Meyer had not given him information from those text messages, which, by the way, Shelley Meyer is a part of the faculty. She teaches in the nursing school. So then I guess she should be fired for not passing that along, right? Or suspended. Maybe she's suspended for 3 games.
That's right. Maybe so.
I'm not making light of it, but it is just, it's ridiculous. Yes. To think that, Shelley Meyer is kind of like a co-coach. She's a part of everything, which is great. I mean, I'm all for that. And I'm all for anything. Seems to be a very wonderful leader in her own right. And she didn't tell Urban Meyer about those troubling text messages in 2015. I'm just not buying it. Every part of my Midwestern Big Ten sensibilities are telling me no way. And I think that's a real problem. I think there are so many problems here. I go back to kind of one of the headlines for me, Stephen A., which is that I just cannot believe that after reading that 23-page report, that Urban Meyer kept his job. I just cannot believe that would be the takeaway of this allegedly august group of people, that they would say, oh, yeah, you know what? We'll let him keep his job and give him a 3-game slap on the wrist. That's just unbelievable.
Well, Christine, let's be specific about this. Not only is he keeping his job, not only is he only suspended for 3 games, he's not missing any Big Ten games other than against Rutgers. He gets to be completely suspended against Oregon State for the opener, but then after that can coach his team right up until game time for the other 2 games before he's officially allowed to come back. So that's how pathetic it is right there. Having said all of that, my last question to you would be this. I'm an advocate, considering what happened with Joe Paterno in Penn State with the pedophile, the serial sexual assaulter in Jerry Sandusky. How the NCAA got involved with Penn State, it would not bother me at all if the NCAA felt the need to intervene because they didn't feel the penalty here for Urban Meyer was stiff enough. To that, you say what?
Yes, I agree with you. I was one of those people that actually thought it was fine that the NCAA was involved in Penn State, and the idea being the improper advantage and the edge that Penn State got by not telling recruits about Jerry Sandusky. I mean, they would have literally had 0 student athletes. No football players would have ever, moms and dads would never have let their sons go to Penn State if they knew what Joe Paterno knew from Mike McQueary and the whole issue that we, of course, lived back in 2011 and 2012.
Right.
So I thought it was an advantage, a competitive advantage for Penn State to keep that a secret and to cover it all up, Joe Paterno and others. And so I thought that was an NCAA violation. I love what the NCAA did, and then they pulled back a little bit on that. So there was such a outcry. But yes, I agree with you. And it's actually, I think it's probably a phone call I should make, and maybe we all should make, to the NCAA to ask them what they're going to do, because as I said, this is really seems to be striking a chord with people. I'm surprised. I'm happily surprised that people are reacting with such anger and venom towards the Board of Trustees' decision and the president's decision. I think that's a good sign, and that it's a bad decision. and that people don't like it. And maybe the NCAA does. I doubt they're going to get involved. I guess, we can always dream. But I think they should. And we should, at the very least, as journalists, be asking them the question, why are you getting involved? And if not, why not? Because they did with Penn State. So why not with Ohio State? I completely agree with you on that one.
Absolutely. Christine Brennan, always appreciate you and the great work you do on USA Today and every place else, ABC News, CNN, PBS, and beyond. Hey, plus you're a best-selling author as well. Thank you so much for the wonderful work, and thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. Really appreciate it.
Always great to talk to you, Stephen A. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The wonderful, incomparable Christine Brennan of USA Today right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. And, oh, by the way, today we're on ESPN2. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. She's absolutely right on the money. And I mean that. I mean, look, I was not of the mindset that Urban Meyer should be suspended until I saw the press conference. Saw the lack of contrition, saw the lack of remorse. And just so you know where I come from, ladies and gentlemen, remember years ago when Rush Limbaugh worked at this network and got let go because of his comment about Donovan McNabb and how the media was desirous that a black quarterback do well and blah, 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 blah. Remember all of that? I wasn't an advocate of Rush Limbaugh being fired until somebody let him know the heightened level of sensitivity, how inappropriate that comment may have been. And as a result, he refused to show any contrition or apologize. Jimmy the Greek years ago, when he got fired, the late Jimmy the Greek, God rest his soul, I wasn't of the mindset that Jimmy the Greek should have been fired. I thought it was egregious that somebody could come into a bar knowing he's clearly inebriated, sticking a camera in his face. He makes some stupid comments off the air, and he get held accountable for that. I really felt that was unfair. I am not a guy that sits up here and says, well, somebody should be fired. I did not believe that Urban Meyer should be fired. Zach Smith is the one that committed domestic violence. The heat and the ultimate ire should be brought to bear on his shoulders right up until I saw that damn press conference. And when I saw that press conference and I saw Urban Meyer act that way and be so dismissive and act like he was the one being victimized, and then I read the report and some of the other details where he was clearly complicit. Clearly complicit. There's no way around that. There's just no way around that. We can slice it any way we want to. There's no way around that. And the bigger issue for me, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that young men, puppies in this world, puppies, are held more accountable than grown men. When you are a leader of men, you must be held to, you must be held to a higher standard. The standard cannot be the same. It cannot be equal. You have to be held to a higher standard because you're the leader. Leaders have more responsibility. To whom much is given, much is required. That statement doesn't come out of nowhere. This is not about Urban Meyer. This is about us. You got this whole scandalous stuff going on in Hollywood with Harvey Weinstein. Why do you think people are looking all over the place to see how far-reaching his alleged behavior is? Because they want to know who else to hold accountable. How did this go on? This kind of stuff matters. And I got to be the first to admit to you, I'm all for it. There's an academic scandal that went down at North Carolina. We looking at the kids. Just the other day, some players got suspended for 4 games for selling sneakers. But for hiding the egregious actions involving domestic violence, not just from the public, but also from his athletic director. Also from the compliance department. Also from officials at The Ohio State University. The coach gets 3 games, but a kid gets 4 for selling sneakers? Really? You gotta be kidding me. And y'all wonder why I go on this air and I come over these airways and I go ballistic. It's because of BS like this. Straight BS. A kid can get suspended for 4 games for selling sneakers. Y'all don't say a damn word. Nothing. But some of you out there are going ballistic because the coach got 3 games. Where one could argue he should have lost his damn job. So he wins because he wins 90% of the game. I'm sorry, when did Urban Meyer make a tackle? When did he run for a touchdown? When did he register a sack? When did he throw a touchdown? Those are players out there doing that. Those are players. Just like it's players dunking the ball or shooting threes. But it's all right to suspend them. But the grown man, far be it to hold him accountable. And don't you make me get started with whether or not it was a black coach. Don't you make me go there. Don't you make me go there. What black coach you know could get accused of something like this and keep their job? Or get a 3-game suspension? And oh, by the way, the 3-game suspension is against Oregon State, Rutgers, and TCU. Gonna coach against Penn State. Gonna coach at against Indiana, Minnesota, at Purdue, Nebraska, at Michigan State, at Maryland, and then again in Michigan, against Michigan. Gonna coach those games. Ain't missing a Big Ten game except against Rutgers. I could coach Ohio State against Rutgers. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. I live in New Jersey and can barely find Rutgers. It's in Piscataway. And I still don't know how the hell to get there. You know why? Because when it comes to football, they ain't relevant. I sincerely hope that changes. I don't root against them, but I'm speaking fact. This is that kind of nonsense. But Stephen A., why you gotta go there, Stephen A.? I mean, why do you have to bring up the black coach thing? And do you have to bring up the kids thing? I mean, come on, Stephen A., come on. Ain't everybody, but ain't most either. But some people ain't worth a damn. Y'all are full of it. Y'all really are. Make me sick to my damn stomach. 888, say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We're actually on ESPN2 right now, not ESPN News, which is shocking to me, but I ain't complaining. That's where I think the radio show should be anyway. But that's a story for another day. 888, say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Thanks again to the lovely, incomparable, wonderful, extraordinary columnist, Miss Christine Brennan for USA Today. She's done sensational work for years, and it is always an honor and a privilege to have her on this show. Back with more of the Stephen A. Smith Show in a minute.
Ricky always wanted to play baseball in the majors. He was playing catch before he could walk, practically lived in the batting cages. He was behind home plate more than he was home. And one day, after all that hard work, he found himself walking into a Major League Baseball stadium. After buying a ticket at the front gate, a nosebleed seat obscured by a pole, but he was in there. No, Ricky never did play in the big leagues, but he did switch his car insurance to Geico, proud partner of Major League Baseball, which saved him a lot. So, all in all, things were good.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show, right here on ESPN Radio. ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN2. Not news. Two. It's where my home was when I was doing First Take before we transitioned to ESPN. Me personally, the preference is always to be on ESPN 1 or 2. I just want to say ESPN 2. I'm very, very happy right now. I just thought that my audience had the right to know. I'm very, very happy about that. By the way, Barbasol is finally making razors. That's a no-brainer. Check out the Barbasol Ultra 6 Plus with 6 ultra-thin blades. Save on the Ultra 6 Plus at Barbasol.com. Plus, do you need game tickets? Find your seats at Vivid Seats, the official ticket partner of ESPN. Enter promo code ESPN at checkout and receive 10% off your order today. Vivid Seats. There you go. Stephen A. Smith Show today on ESPN2. Just want to make sure about that. Not ESPN News. I'm on ESPN2. That's where you can find me today. If you're not listening to me on the radio, you can watch me on ESPN2. Back to the phones. Let's go to Jeff. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, Stephen A., I just wanted to say, love your show, bro. Love everything about you. I've been listening to you a long time.
Thank you.
This whole Urban Meyer thing, man, we're talking about allegations from a woman.
Stop right there. It's no longer allegations. They've got text messages, emails, et cetera, This kind of stuff happened. Go ahead.
Yep. Exactly. You got text messages, emails, all that. Police reports this man was never charged with nothing. Never charged. This was in 2015. This all stems from a reporter asking a question at a press conference. Mm-hmm. Now, here's where I have a problem with this. There's been evidence that's come out and said this woman's made it known she's going to ruin this guy's career, the father of her children. Now, everybody wants to throw Urban Meyer under the bus and say, we need to fire him. He only got 3 games. Urban Meyer didn't do anything.
Stop right there. Do you have children?
Yeah, I got children.
Do you have daughters?
Yeah.
If the head coach, who is supposed to be a leader of men, finds out about this stuff, doesn't tell the athletic director, doesn't tell the compliance department, puts The Ohio State University in a bad light and in a bubble that can certainly severe and compromise their reputation. If it were someone who did not win 90% of their football games, what do you think would happen to them?
I think didn't he come out and say he told Gene Smith?
Well, there were things that he didn't tell Gene Smith about. Gene Smith wasn't aware of certain things.
Another point to that, Stephen, too, I'd like to say.
Yep.
And I don't condone men putting their hands on women. That should never happen.
Okay.
But we don't know what happened between that man and that woman and what that woman done versus anything. Now, you got this reporter from CNN saying, or USA Today a few minutes ago.
Let me give you the strongest argument. This kid, Reuben Foster, formerly of Alabama with the San Francisco 49ers, it got into the media that, he was being accused of domestic violence. He categorically denied it. Ultimately, people excoriated him. Come to find out, the woman goes on the record and acknowledges she lied, and she did so because she was furious that he had broken up with her and admitted that she lied. Most of those folks in the media who were dogging him and calling for him to be released by the 49ers apologized. A couple of people in the media did not. So you have a point, is what I'm trying to say.
I don't condone it. I don't want nobody to think that. And I think him being away from the team for this, while they did their investigation, I think everything fell in place the way it's supposed to be.
I disagree with you. The only reason I disagree with you,
what happened.
I disagree with you because regardless of what happened or did not happen, he put Ohio State in a bad situation. You got to remember, this is the same Urban Meyer that was head of Florida's program when 31 arrests took place. One of his players was Aaron Hernandez. And some accused Urban Meyer of not being as heavy-handed on Aaron Hernandez as he should have been. And look how that ended up. The reality of the situation is there's some track history here as it pertains to Urban Meyer's behavior, his insensitivity to certain actions and transgressions on the part of people associated with his football program. It's undeniable. All of that stuff has been out there, and there's no way to get around that. I've got to run, though, Jeff, but I appreciate your call, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from with that. Let's go to Brian. You're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, buddy.
Stephen A., just let me say, any dude that calls up on Urban Meyer's side, how stupid can you be? People lie for 2 reasons. They don't want to get in trouble and to cover something up. He knew. Not only did he knew, he covered it up, and he enabled this guy to be able to continue to abuse his wife. And the worst thing is, he, the president, the athletic director of Ohio State, had a chance to make it a little better. They had 2 weeks on an investigation. 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
they had a press conference that's a dog and pony show. That's the most disingenuous, egotistical, arrogant, useless.
I don't think that Urban Meyer has ever made himself look worse than he looked last night.
It's terrible. If you want to kill the story, you come out, you take ownership of it. I messed up. And then you stand up like a man and answer the questions coming because you earned those questions.
Got it.
Not only did he not do that at Big Ten Media Days, this guy's got the audacity and the ignorance to challenge the reporter on the credibility of the story. He is a complete fake and a liar. And if it were anybody else in America, this guy's not around.
Yeah.
And to Ms. Smith.
All right. I appreciate the call, Brian. Thank you so much. Let's go to Ed. You're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Ed.
Almost none of the stuff that happened even at Ohio State in the last few years mattered. If he cared about this guy as much as he said he did because of his grandpa, Earl Bruce, he'd have done the right thing in 2009. And he said, look, son, did you hit your wife? Did you harm her in any way? And he says no. And he says, well, then there's only one solution because you gave your statement to the police. She gave her statement to the police. You're telling me yours is the truth. Then she's a liar. Now, I don't believe that. But then she's a liar who's willing to ruin your life. You got 2 choices. You admit it, you get help, you're off the staff, I'll do everything I can to help you in your future. But if she's lying, you have to get away from her, you have to divorce her, she's willing to commit criminal acts to ruin your life.
Let me stop you, Ed, and ask you a question. Because I don't disagree with you. Please know that. But I for the purposes of dialogue, I got to play devil's advocate for a second. The mentor was Earl Bruce, who essentially Urban Meyer feels indebted to for Urban Meyer's illustrious career. This was his grandson. Because everything you've heard about Zach Smith is that he was basically an incompetent coach. He wasn't good as a wide receivers coach. The players weren't too fond of him. They didn't think he was that good at all, nor that helpful. And not only did you hire him in Florida, you brought him with you to Ohio State. So my question to you is that Earl Bruce factor, the fact that he's the grandfather, your mentor, a man you felt indebted to, is the grandfather of this particular coach. You say what to that?
I guess I'm wired differently than Urban Meyer. I would have a greater responsibility to helping him grow into be a better man, a better father, a better husband, and those things than ever to keep him on his staff as a football coach, and I'd do exactly what I had just suggested.
Okay. Appreciate the call. Thank you so much, Ed. Definitely appreciate that perspective. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, 250-plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, not to mention the Stephen A. Smith Show, simulcast live on ESPN2. We'll close out the show with your calls in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! I can't wait to get into some more football talk. This stuff just gets on my nerves, interrupts my sports, but I understand how it happens, how it goes down. Let's get back to the phones real quick. Mitch, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Stephen A., big fan.
Thank you. Go ahead, man.
This seems like a case that really isn't going to go away. Do you think the backlash, protest, heckling could make Urban end up resigning at the end of the season?
I don't know. I think he obviously wants to be around for some time to come. He was very reluctant to accept the suspension, which is why it took so long for them to announce it, because he didn't even want to accept that. Number one. Number two, I think the NCAA should intervene. I think the NCAA should intervene and say this is a patsy suspension. It's soft as putty. What the hell is this? You ain't sending any kind of message with this. You know, there's a compliance department and you know, a bunch of overseers in place that were bypassed or circumvented by this man. And I think that's what we're looking at right now. I appreciate the call, though. Thank you. Mary, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would just like to say that as a country, we've got this all turned upside down. Mm-hmm. We've got a man in the White House. You talk about leadership that has done some egregious things, and he's still in. Urban Meyer, what he did, and what Ohio State, I'm in the area, I see what they've done. Ohio State is a is a machine. It's about the money. You've got players that can't receive any money. If I go out and put up a hot dog stand, I can make as much money as I can. Mm-hmm. The players can't do anything. Right. They've gone to the point of you get kicked off campus at a sophomore year, where if you're talking about protecting your kids and your students, mm-hmm. you provide housing along with books and tuition and so forth mm-hmm. to keep them safe. Mm-hmm. This, and then if you add the racial piece in here, this is about mostly black men running up and down the field. You get hurt.
Well, that has nothing to do with Zach Smith and Urban Meyer in this particular situation, but you get no disagreement from me. We understand that there are young African-American student athletes that are being exploited and not being fairly compensated. We get that, even though there are white athletes that are suffering the same dilemma because they're involved in collegiate sports as well. There is no denying that. I don't believe there's any question that if this were a black coach, that this man would be gone. Yes, the athletic director happens to be African-American and he's getting paid less than $1 million, but he's kept his job. He's just going to be docked 2 weeks' pay. But if it were Urban Meyer, if it was African-American coach in this particular situation that wasn't getting paid the money that Urban Meyer was getting paid, I would think that the same would happen to him. I don't think the same would happen. I don't think the same would happen to him. I think he would have been gone. The same would have happened to him if he was making Urban Meyer's money, though.
Say this, when you talk about what they could have done as a university, they've gotten rid of the piece where women could go and tell, hey, I've been harassed or I've been raped and so forth. The university is going to protect that money, their moneymaker. Urban Meyer is the face of that, along with, mm-hmm. I also felt like, why was he the one to do the firing, that this should have come down from HR, from Gene Smith and so forth and so on. Mm-hmm. I also feel that the Powell Police Department, by not acting on the cause of Zach Smith's wife, somebody there needs to lose their job as well. If you're talking about getting rid of jobs and putting people on suspension and so forth, then we have to look at the whole picture.
I got you, Mary. I've got to run because I've got to get off the airwaves, but I don't disagree with your point. Definitely somebody needs to look at that, just like somebody needed to look at what transpired with Ezekiel Elliott's situation in terms of the local police there in Columbus, because not much came of that either. That's something else we forgot about in all of this. Any way you slice it, it just looks bad. It looks bad for Urban Meyer. It looks bad for Ohio State University. But ultimately, nothing's going to come of it because he wins 90% of his game and he's getting paid $7